there's a legend that haunts the quiet woods of the Appalachian Mountains. It's said that deep within, there are sacred grounds, cursed by those who once lived there, a group of early settlers who disappeared without a trace centuries ago. They believed in the forest of shadows, a place where the boundary between the living and the dead was thin, and anyone who crossed it might never return. But of course, legends are just stories, right? The story follows a group of four friends who decided to go camping for the weekend. Among them was Mark, a skeptic who loved to challenge superstition. One of his friends, Sarah, was deeply religious, constantly warning them not to disrespect the land, especially after hearing from the locals that they were camping dangerously close to those cursed woods. Sarah held on to her grandmother's tales, stories of spirits that could possess those who dared to camp in the wrong place. The friends laughed it off, including Mark, who mockingly threw salt over his shoulder, joking about warding off evil spirits. Yet that night, when the wind started to whisper through the trees, their laughter quickly faded. As the night wore on, strange things started happening. Sarah swore she saw figures moving in the trees just beyond the fire's reach. Mark dismissed it as nothing but the play of shadows, teasing her for being overly religious. But Sarah wasn't the only one who felt it. The others began hearing whispers carried by the wind, incomprehensible murmurs that sounded like prayers, or perhaps curses. At one point, the air grew heavy with the smell of decay, and the fire flickered violently. That's when Sarah, pale and shaken, remembered something her grandmother used to say: "When the fire dances with no wind, the spirits are near." Annoyed by the growing tension, Mark grabbed a flashlight and headed deeper into the forest, determined to prove there was nothing to fear. As he ventured farther, the noises grew louder: footsteps, rustling leaves, and faint chants in a language he couldn't understand. Mark stopped. His breath fogged in the suddenly cold air, and a chill ran down his spine. He pointed his flashlight at a nearby tree and saw strange symbols carved into the bark. They looked old and ominous. Suddenly, a branch snapped behind him. He spun around, heart racing, but there was nothing. Then, just as he was about to turn back to the camp, his flashlight flickered out. The forest was swallowed by darkness. Back at the camp, Sarah was clutching her necklace, whispering a prayer for protection. "He shouldn't have gone in there," she said quietly, her eyes wide with fear. Meanwhile, Mark, now in complete darkness, began to panic. He called out to his friends, but his voice seemed swallowed by the dense trees. That's when he felt it, breath on the back of his neck, cold and slow. The camera zooms in on Mark's terrified face as he slowly turns around, only to find a hand reaches out from the shadows, yanking him into the dark. Cut to black. Scream. Legend has it, those who challenge the spirits of the Forest of Shadows are never seen again. But if you listen closely on a quiet night, you might still hear their screams.